We practice selective annihilation of mayors and government officials. For example, to create a vacuum, then we fill that vacuum. As popular war advances, pieces. Ah, shit, are we live? I was just singing. Embarrassing. Welcome, everybody, to Keith and the Girl. I'm Keith Malley.
I'm Hemda.
Hello, Hemda.
Hello.
Hello. Make sure you say hi to us, info@keithandthegirl.com. We have we get your emails. We have our forums. We're on Reddit. So many ways to interact, and it's a lot of fun. We love the letters. There's one from Jamie. Let's get right into it. Hey, folks, Jamie says, first, Keith, congratulations on your Silent Trailers win.
Yes, congrats. Great win.
I get so sweaty doing those, honestly. I need a shower, change of clothes. It was looking scary in the beginning, he says, when they were whipping your butt. Oh,
yeah.
My.
It was looking like it was going to be like, what are those things called? A sweep? What's that?
Yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
We were all rooting for you. I invited a few fully vaccinated friends over for dinner on Saturday, and Silent Trailers was part of the entertainment for the night. My friends and I had a blast.
Yay.
I saw pictures where people were having parties. They throw it on their TV. That's fun to see. One of the greatest moments was when Henda's clue was 90210, and immediately followed by Keith guessing Sharknado correctly. The room erupted. There was some spilled wine. It was a very successful night. Thank you both for putting this show on. I have a question about OMAT Club. I keep hovering over the button to get a week of OMAT, but I'm scared. Any words of encouragement? Peace, love, and Keith and the Girl for over a decade of my life, Jamie. See, that's the thing, right? Like Silent Trailers, you know that's going to be a fun time, but OMAT sounds like you might have to work on yourself, so you're a little nervous about it. Don't be scared. I'm there every weekday, and it helped me out a lot. And you know that the word, self-help or any of this kind of thing, it could seem overwhelming, but I dig it. Don't be scared of it. Leave your camera off if you want. Just listen. Henda's going to trick you into doing everything else, okay? Let's do it together. Go to right now, keithandthegirl.com/OMAT, OMAT. Take a look what I'm saying, okay? Now, click like you're buying it. Now, you see where it says code? Type in the code HALF, HALF. Boom. Look what just happened. All right. You didn't know I had a code, but I do. And now you do too. The code's HALF. Okay. Thank you. No, Silent Trailers. We had what? Dana Gould, Guy Branum, Abby Crutchfield, Sarah Hartshorn. These are some scary folks. But I have to say, my favorite part is still the behind the scenes when we're setting these people up. And sometimes, the audience members can sign up to see part of that process. So we make bets on who's going to be last. We make our bets on who will be asking if it's okay to record their end from on top of a moving train. There's always something scary. There's always something.
You always tell me that my face gives away things. So like, you'll be like, Hemda, what? And I'm like, I didn't say anything. You're like, your eyes are popping out of your head. I wonder, when Sarah came in to backstage this past Saturday night, was my jaw literally on the floor? Because I'm not sure. I blacked out for like a minute.
I believe it was.
Okay.
You're hearing people do a stand-up show.
She's outside.
5 feet away from her, and even though she's outside.
Yeah.
Like, I could go somewhere quieter. Okay.
On her phone.
Right. And then she comes back. She was nowhere quieter. But that's part of the charm.
She was coming in from an alley in Manhattan.
Right.
An alley, the back of an alley on the staircase. So if you want to see like a tour of New York, come to Silent Trailers.
Right.
Tickets will be going up for the next one really soon. So
I saw on social media, Abby Crutchfield wrote, unpopular opinion, fast forward through the parts of the movie we're watching that make me uncomfortable because we can still figure out the story and have none of the nightmares. That's why I won. Gotta watch the whole movie. Vincent came backstage.
Yep.
And I can't help what people thought when they saw him. Are they like, wait a minute, do I like you? You seem redeemable. I can't tell.
And he came in with a different first name on his Zoom thing. So
Right.
I kept calling him Mr. Garcia. I'm like, I don't know if you know or if I'm supposed to acknowledge it, but like, hi, Mr. Garcia.
Svag rates on our forums. Holy shit. That last show, the last section with Vincent No shade to Usama. I enjoyed that part too. But that last section with Vincent, can we get Keith and the girl inducted again into the Podcasting Hall of Fame? That was the epitome of high quality podcasting, of interviewing Oprah who, Joe Rogan who. Amazing. That was fun to read. Yeah. I didn't know if it upset people. Like you're talking to a troubled guy. You know, you're trying to normalize him. I really didn't know what the audience would think, but nobody seems too upset yet. I did see this gentleman, Michael Davignon. He's upset with us. I saw when we put on Facebook, hey, here's the event coming up. It's Silent Trailers.
Yeah.
His first comment under that was, used to like this podcast until all of a sudden the host can't tell right from wrong. Just throw their hands up and say, I don't know, when the state of Israel is an apartheid state. But they have chocolate milk in a bag. Yeah, I bet South Africa was nice to visit if you were a white person. Motherfucker. What do you think we said? What did you hear we said, Michael? First of all, you used to like this podcast until yesterday? You simpleton piece of shit. You know, these people act like they said something intelligent and clever, you know, but you have it figured out. You know who's right, who's wrong. You can't even believe that we might have our hands up in the air a little bit. You have no problem with Hamas government tunnels being deliberately made under civilian houses so that it does cause trouble. You have it all fucking figured out. And because he did that on social media, I can easily click on his name and see what he's about. He lives in Rhode Island. He has it figured out in Rhode Island. Kenda has bombs going over her parents' heads' houses. But you got to figure it out in the country in Rhode Island.
Also, I never said that I know who's right or who's wrong. I said what I've been taught. I said a little bit of what I know. I also said that I know that I can't figure this out because great nations together have not been able to figure this out. Right. The nations that we're talking about have not been able to figure this out. I'm not going to just decide that on my comedy show, I'm going to know the answers to all of this.
And what do you want me to do, too? Why are you yelling at me? Yell at the Israel Defense League. They have a Twitter account.
Apparently, that's me. And by the way, chocolate milk in a bag is the greatest thing that you can ever drink. And I'm so sorry to throw that during the war zone. But that's the thing that I would look forward to, okay? I could sit there in the bomb shelter room of my parents' home that I'm not invited to and drink that in peace. And that's the only place there is peace, isn't there?
This guy thinks
he there. I don't fucking know.
This guy thinks he's solving something. This is a conflict, Michael, that you started. This wasn't a conversation.
Also, by the way, if you have it figured out, can you please write one more sentence that maybe I can understand it?
Right. I saw that. So then, I do my little sleuthing and I see, did he ever rate the show? And what pops up is that I learned that he was a YouTube subscriber of us 4 years ago. So at least 4 years, this gentleman is listening. And then all of a sudden, used to like him, don't anymore. On my Silent Trailers post. That's where you do it. Because you want to have a discussion. It's important, you motherfucker.
I learned a lot. So I think that's the important part.
Ay, caramba. I try not to let it ruin my day. I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary with my girlfriend.
Congratulations.
And for a treat, I put together all the food that she's been ordering from restaurants and never ate. And I presented them all as one big buffet of bullshit.
Did you put broccoli rabe in the shape of a heart somehow, like a wreath?
It was a wreath around tofu and broccoli that she orders and never buys. And I'm like, hey, why don't you take this home for your kid? No. Then why did you order it? Like I gave it to Henda. I'm giving her tofu and broccoli. Anyway, happy anniversary, baby. She'll leave here. She has a gym fob, like those electric things to open doors in her gym. And I go, oh, this ended up here. Do you need it? She's like, no, but keep it. It's for the gym. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with it? And I know what's going to happen 3 years from now. I'm like, am I throwing this away? Yeah, you didn't ever have to keep. I have so much shit she doesn't necessarily want, but somebody should hold it. Then she's amazed that my place is always cluttered. Anyway, we had a beautiful time together. I cleaned up my place. We did, actually. I cleaned up my place. She thought I hired a cleaner.
Oh,
that's how good I did. That's
wow,
her
you
gift.
actually cleaned it. That's good.
Yeah, that's her gift. I did the silverware, everything.
What did you polish the silverware? What silverware do you have?
You gotta wash it.
Oh, okay.
That's the real to-do.
You used soap?
Yeah, individually I did it. You know, some of these people, they do 10 silverware at a time. Not me. I put on a fresh Brooklyn and sheets, and we were good to go. That was it. That easy. She's so in love. I don't blame her. I'm talking about Brooklyn and sheets, Brooklyn and towels. Let me mention this. The Brooklyn and weighted blanket. Newsy got it, loves it. That changed his life. He got one for his mother. She's excited.
I have a weighted blanket.
You like it?
I love it.
Good, because that would be terrible timing if you hated it.
It's such a hug.
Yes. I know about the sheets. I know about the towels, and I think I'm going to check out this weighted blanket too. Give yourself the comfort refresh that you deserve. Get it for less at Brooklinen. Go to brooklinen.com. Use promo code POUND, POUND. Get $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's BROOKLINEN.com. The promo code is POUND for $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's brooklinen.com. Promo code POUND. And it gets the job done. All right. Today's guest. We heard about this guy from Julie Seba. She said, you might like talking to this guy. And I said, Julie, you had me at might. And I'm going to go over his credits, if you will, as I'm talking to him, because I think it's very interesting, all the many different things. Here he is, Matthew Klickstein.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
I understand why he didn't start with your credits, because in reading the stuff that you've done, you should be, I expected a 105-year-old man. I don't know how anyone has the time to do the things that you've accomplished. So thank you, Keith, for sparing us that time. We're going to put it into the meat of the show.
And the screenwriting degree that you have, it really branched down to all these things. First of all, he wrote a Steven Seagal movie.
By accident. That was an accident, but it did happen.
Now I want you to explain it to me, because I'm picturing Steven Seagal in a horror movie, and
his only horror movie to date. Sure. And that says a lot for a guy who's been in, I think, about 300,000 movies at this point.
Right.
Because he puts out about 7 a month, I think.
Tell me if it went anything like this. Like, I picture you're on set in case they need rewrites, and he's like, I'm gonna beat up the ghosts and I'll kick them. And, the director's going to be like, no, they're ghosts, right? So you'll have to see a priest and, I think I'll just kick them. Then they call you over, Matthew, rewrite. He wants to kick them. You're like, well, they're ghosts. Do they have to be? I want to kick them. Anything like that happen?
I think it's really charming that you thought I had any impact or effect at all on the actual production of the film. No, in fact, I had absolutely none. And the truth is, I wrote the script. I was fresh out of film school. We all know how useful film school is and that great screenwriting degree. And I was working with a friend of mine that I had met there, one of the few good things that came out of film school. He had a few connections. We developed a script together. And the whole concept was, we're going to do a very authentic kind of 1970s, very naturalist, very slow, silent, almost European type of horror film. The whole concept was, we're going to do vampires, but we're not even going to call them vampires. They're not going to have special powers. They're going to actually file their teeth down. So everything's very real and true. And it's very, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left. The whole concept was authentic and real. I was very influenced by Twilight Zone growing up. I still am. And early science fiction stuff, Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury. So I wanted it to be almost existential, almost philosophical, if I'm not getting too pretentious here. But I was in my early 20s, so give me a break. But the company bought it. They were an affiliate of Sony Pictures.
What do you mean the company? Where do you send that? Your friend
my friend was a trainee at ICM at the time, and he had some connections there. We were able to have some meetings with different producers, and everybody loved it. Everybody loved the script. I am pretty proud of the script. I put a lot into it. I did a lot of research.
What did you find interesting about the meetings that you had in before they agreed to it? Were there several?
Yeah, no, I mean, what the funny thing was, everybody was saying they were referencing Twilight Zone. They were referencing a lot of the films that I was very interested in and that I was inspired by. The original I Am Legend novella, which is very different than any of the movies that have ever been adapted from it. And they were talking the talk. Oh, we love how real it is. We love the authenticity of it. We love how quiet and true it is, and it's not like these big blockbuster horror films, etc.
We're not going to sell that many tickets. It's going to be quaint. We're
not going to corrupt or destroy your script.
Yeah. It's like a small town. You can't invite that many people.
Just everything about it was adorable and fun. And then about a year and a half later, when they called me up to say, "Hey, we're actually going to do this," suddenly it was, "Oh, by the way, Steven Seagal wants to be involved." I said, who is he going to be? There's not even a character who could possibly be Steven Seagal at all.
Did that bum you out? Because you're being a little. The movie, by the way, was called Against the Dark. 11%
it was called Against the Dark.
11% I see on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, no, really proud of it. And by the way, I will tell you something too. They actually told me the reason it was ultimately called Against the Dark, aside from, of course, the trick that a lot of people know that most Steven Seagal movies have 3 titles: Above the Law, Marked for Death. The list goes on. Right. But they said at that time, Blockbuster was still the big thing. It was the Netflix of the time, as some of the older folks might remember. And it was just like AAA plumbing in the Yellow Pages. They actually told me, they said, if we can get a letter A at the beginning, it'll be the first big kind of booth at Blockbuster that you'll see when you walk in. And they were right. Every Blockbuster you walked in, bunch of just a wall of Against the Dark. I had friends from all over the country sending me pictures of it in those early days of texting. But you know what? I was a little schizophrenic about it because, first of all, I'm 23 years old. I have no money. Sony Pictures is going to make a movie with me. Yes, even then, Steven Seagal was a bit of a joke, but he's a name guy. And my script's getting made. Hooray. I was not too excited about the fact that he had, quote unquote, rewritten it and that he was to be in it, because I'm not kidding. There was absolutely no Steven Seagal type character in it. And in fact, when you watch the film, he's only in it for about 15 minutes. He barely looks like himself. They dubbed his voice. I mean, it's like executive decision or something. He's
because why? Because he was mumbling or what?
You'd have to ask them. I was not there for the production. If I wanted to be on the production, I would have had to go to Romania where they shot it. I would have had to pay my own way. I would have had to put up my own lodging and everything. Don't let the Sony Pictures aspect of this fool you. They didn't even have money for the quote unquote writer to come. And when I finally saw it about a year later, it was unrecognizable. But my name was on it and it got me a couple of bucks. And to this day, every now and then when it comes up as a joke or something, every now and then, I can't believe how many fans Steven Seagal still has that they say, "Oh my God, you wrote a Steven Seagal movie?" Yeah, hire me.
I know it's gauche to ask about how much you made. So if you don't want to say the number, can you say if it floated you as an artist for a year or two, or is it just paid your lunch for like?
No, I appreciate it. Let's just say this: it definitely it's a good thing I was not in the Writers Guild at the time, because I would have not been able to do it. So it was a nice low 5 figures, and I was living very cheaply at the time. I was living with a roommate, and I was doing the whole starving artist thing. We were living off of cereal and weed and free beers that we got from our friends at bars and stuff like that. And if I wanted to treat myself, I'd get a peanut butter sandwich or something. So, and at that time, I was optioning scripts pretty regularly. I never, to my credit, I'll say, I never worked at a coffee shop or a restaurant or anything like that. I did some PA work on different films and whatnot. But I mean, I was a working filmmaker and writer. I was working on different magazines and such. So when that came together, I thought, okay, I'm at this point now. This will be the next step. And then right around that time, the Writers Guild strike happened in 2008, which some people might remember. And it literally shut the industry down. It was like lockdown now. My roommate, who also worked for Sony in a different department, he got laid off. And a lot of people I know lost their deals. I was actually going to work with this same company on a sequel to a big blockbuster film that was going to be, another straight to DVD thing. And they had some pretty big names involved, and that would have been a bigger project. And I thought, okay, here I go. But the writer's strike canceled everything out. And by then I had been in LA long enough that I said, I'm done. And I sold my car. I sold everything I owned. I left. I actually thought I was going to get out of the film industry entirely. I definitely had the whole Nathaniel West player experience where I just said, LA is not for me. And I was working. So it's not like I was trying to get in. I was working in my early 20s, doing other different projects, TV and whatnot. And still, LA just wasn't for me. I couldn't stand the traffic. I couldn't stand all the stuff with your car. I never really found my place with, whatnot. So
you seem a little more like an indoor cat. Yes.
Yes and no. I mean, I lived in New York 3 different times, and I felt much more comfortable in New York. I'll put it like that.
The darkness of the soul.
Well, and also I think that, it's true what they say in LA. They stab you in the back. In New York, they stab you in the front, and I like the stab you in the front type of style more often. Now I live in the Midwest where they don't stab you at all.
They stab you what when they vote? Where's that? Where's the stabbing?
I've actually lived all over the Midwest at this point. I was working, funnily enough, for a show on Food Network, traveling around doing some other things, and so I've lived all over the Midwest. But no, LA LA wasn't for me. I never really even liked the beaches very much, and I grew up in Southern California. I grew up by San Diego. I do miss the deserts. I do miss Northern California. That was great. I love.
What was my question?
Your question was something about, am I an indoor kid?
Let's reverse engineer this. Speaking of the Food Network, the show was Restaurant Impossible, right?
Correct. Yes.
And it's a restaurant's falling apart, and the man has to come in and fix it.
Yeah, Robert Irvine. In fact, it actually just got rebooted after being gone for a few years. In a different form. So I was a casting producer for that for about 3 years. I had worked with Mark Summers from Double Dare and also Unwrapped for a few years after we had worked on some projects together. And he liked my work enough and we got along well enough that he brought me on that show. And that's when I actually left New York for the last time after living there a few times, as I mentioned, and just started traveling around the country and just meeting with
How do you cast for the restaurant show? Are you casting the restaurant and the owner of it? How do you look for
it's insulting. It's insulting because he goes into restaurants. He's like, hey, you want to be on a show where they fix up your place? And they're like, what?
No, they come to us, actually. A lot of my job was going through all the applications to see. I mean, people were begging and pleading for years after I was no longer working on the show, after it got canceled after 12 years. I was still getting phone calls and texts, sometimes from desperate people saying, we need you to come. They're going to close the restaurant. If they close the restaurant, my grandfather loses his medical insurance and he'll die. I mean, I literally had people say that. I would have to say, please don't call me like that. Like, the show's not even going anymore. Are you even watching? I mean, it's gone. Really? So no, I would, it was almost one of the reasons Mark Summers brought me on the show was because he knew I was a longtime journalist. And it was really like doing almost.
Was Mark Summers just trying to clean up restaurants so he could eat out more? Because he's a germaphobe, right?
He's not a germaphobe. The OCD that he has, we actually made a documentary about this as well a few years ago.
I didn't catch up to all your work because I haven't lived that long yet.
Right. The OCD he had was not about germophobia. It was more about order. Things need to be in their place. He actually came out with a book about it a few years ago called Everything in Its Place. People would actually ask me when they would meet him at different things, can I touch him? Can I hug him? Can I shake his hand?
That's what people ask me about Keith too. It's weird.
But no, so his was not germophobia. His was just things needed to be orderly and such. And you
work well with that, obviously.
We actually didn't work too closely together when I was working on the show because he was in the home office in Philadelphia or working on other shows or things he was doing.
So
I was working mostly
place?
remotely. Yeah, I was working mostly remotely and traveling around and doing a lot of stuff over Skype and whatnot. And I'd be literally interviewing all the different people at the restaurant and determining not only is it worth going there, but are they worth being on TV? Are they funny? Are they interesting? I mean, some people,
that's what I want to know. Yeah. I want to know, like, what makes your decision go from one person to the next? Do they have to be chatty? Does it have to be like fucked up in a more personal way? A
little bit of everything. After working on it for 3 years, I mean, I worked on almost 70 episodes. I got pretty good at figuring out what the producers would like because I'm basically pitching the restaurants and the stories of these restaurants to the producers, and then they would choose. So I would give them like 10 almost pitch packages. Like you would pitch a story.
Pitch us one.
Yeah, and then so. There might. This is a really great example, and I would try to find places that were kind of unique. So, for example, there was an older woman who lived in New Orleans her restaurant was actually based out of a barber shop, and one of the issues
oh my god,
not like surprisingly was there was hair a lot in the food.
Hold on, are you talking about like the musical where they fed people to?
No, not Sweeney Todd. Although maybe that was going on as well. But I would work very hard to find these unique stories. Plus, the people who worked there were all characters, and there was an interesting melange of different personalities because some people were haircut people and some people were food people. It was also they were still dealing with what happened with the hurricane and everything like that in New Orleans, and just it was a lot of really colorful characters, that were at this place, and it was very small. Some of the really fun ones, obviously. where like, you know, it's fourth generation and it's the grandkids fighting with grandma and grandpa who don't even know how to use a POS system and don't know how to use social media or anything. And the kids are basically saying, grandma, grandpa, like you have to start actually using this stuff or we're going to go out of business.
Did you guys ever do tricks like you have a box and they're like, you have rats? And like, we don't have rats. And you just start dumping rats. You know what? You have rats.
I actually, according to the producers and according to Mark, ours was one of the only reality shows ever that was actually authentic. And I know that from some of the other people who worked on it, it was true. Even a lot of the other food reality shows, they would do little things like that. But ours was pretty real. And I would see I learned a lot about restaurants and I learned a lot about kitchens because they would, if I wasn't actually there in person, they would bring their laptop or their phone around when I was on Skype with them to record. And I would actually be recording everything and use that as part of my pitch package. So I would see pretty disgusting things sometimes. And that too was like, oh, we definitely can go there. Like there's a lot to do. Because some places, you know, they would call us up or they'd send in an application and say, we need you. And then I would look at the place and it's kind of like, there's nothing to fix. I actually learned at a point, one of the first questions I would ask is, what's your overhead for like rental or things like that? Or what's your mortgage? And some places they were fine on every level. It was just, they were in a very expensive place, like your friend in Rhode Island say. And it's kind of like, there's nothing we can do about the fact that your mortgage is 10 times what it should be. We can't fix your restaurant, you know, and that actually happened a lot. So there were a few places, and I learned very early on, or some places had so much tax debt that it's like, there's nothing we could do about that. We can't fix your menu to fix your $200,000 tax debt that you have. You are probably going out of business.
What makes Mark Summers, the Double Dare Slime guy, go into the restaurant business of sorts? Does it have anything to do with anything that he likes, or a slot gets open, you're in Hollywood, grab it?
Mark, because he was also on I think it was the Food Network. He did that show where he showed candies around, like
Unwrapped, which they're also bringing back. Yeah. I mean, Mark was a pro. Mark, actually, a lot of people don't realize this. Mark had his own talk show with a gal named Sissy Biggers on a Lifetime for a while, Summers and Biggers. I mean, Mark's done a lot of shows. And even before Double Dare, he did a lot of different things. I mean, he's one of the hardest working people in Hollywood, or at least was before lockdown, and just, you know, he's getting up there in age and is dealing with some other health issues and such. But I mean, he's still always developing things. He does a lot of stuff behind the scenes now, different documentaries and whatnot. So Mark bounced around a lot. And actually, it is worth noting that though Double Dare was not the first show on Nickelodeon, it really was one of the shows that helped to brand it and helped to send it off in the into the stratosphere. So too with Unwrapped and Food Network, that it was, of course, not the first show on Food Network, but it's pretty much what helped to really make that network happen. So you could say that Mark Summers really helped to launch not one, but two of the biggest networks that are out there, Nickelodeon and Food Network. So he just bounced around. And once Unwrapped did well, and he became a producer on Unwrapped after being the host, then he did, you know, Dinner Impossible with Robert Irvine, and then he did Restaurant Impossible with Robert Irvine. It's just like anything else. Once you have a hit, they want more hits. It's why, you know, whether you're Lee Daniels or Tyler Perry or any of these other people, you know, you get to do thing after thing after thing because you're their guy. You know, Judd Apatow, whomever, he just was that guy in the 90s and early 2000s, and especially at Food Network, which he, in a lot of ways, helped to build. So are
we nervous about these health issues?
There were times when I was there where I would get a little bit nervous. It was more of, I learned a few tricks about where to go or not go when I was going to a restaurant myself, but I had already been doing a lot of foodie.
Oh, sorry. I meant Mark Summers' health issues you brought up.
Oh, no, I mean, that was a little bit later on, just stuff with he went through, you know, it's more public now. Went through a bout of cancer. He was in a really bad car accident, which caused some problems for him for a little while. His OCD thing, which kind of comes and goes, and he talks about in his book or in different places and such. So, you know, it was just, I mean, a lot of it was when he got cancer and was dealing with that was really tough. And we went through that with him, and it was really hard. And he also had to, frankly, keep it quiet because there's nothing that can really ruin your career like something like that, because then you become an untouchable. Everyone's nervous about working with you. The insurance bonds go way up and everything. I mean, the industry can be pretty bad about that kind of stuff. So, you know, we were having to deal with some of this, and meanwhile, he was dealing with it as well. And so, you know, it was rough. But, you know, he's talked about a lot of these things in different interviews and such over the years. And he actually, you know, talked about, I think he did some kind of Oprah thing or something around that time and talked about his cancer stuff, if I remember correctly. But, you know, Mark gets around. Mark has more energy than anybody I've ever dealt with or worked with in Hollywood.
I'll tell you who gets around. Sorry to cut you off. I'll tell you who gets around. You do. You wrote a book on Mr. Skin, the pervert that takes the nudity clips, you know, from major movies and on one place to whack off to. Were you what makes you pick that? Does that fall in your lap? And are you dating or anything like that? And it's like, can you just come to bed? And you're like, I'm doing research.
That was like Mr. Skin was the one assignment I ever got. We both had agents at a literary agency that later ended up screwing everybody over, including its own agents. So who's the real pervert in that case? But my agent knew that I had no inhibitions. I had no druthers about things, like that. He said, this project's getting passed around. The 20th anniversary of Mr. Skin was coming up. This really is true. I agreed to do it just because, frankly, I needed the money. And I thought, oh, this is another project. And it sounded kind of fun. I honestly thought that Mr. Skin was a condom company. And it was one of those like sitcom moments where we were talking about it and it sounded exciting. And, it's sort of this project that's going around, but no one really wants to touch it for various reasons, which I assume was just because it's condoms or something. And I agreed. And then I say, by the way, what's Mr. Skin? And of course, we actually have a chapter about this in the book. He said, well, have you ever seen Knocked Up? And I don't know if you recall, but there's a whole...
I do.
Yeah, that whole scenario revolving around Mr. Skin in Knocked Up comes from Apatow. Like a lot of the people involved in the film listened to Howard Stern a lot, and they would hear Mr. Skin come on and do his little bit and what have you. And according to Apatow, we have it in the book, and Mr. Skin thinks this is hilarious. Apatow was like, what could be the most pathetic job that I could have the boys, Jonah Hill and Rogen and Jason Segel do? And he said, I'm going to have them do this job. And worse, I'm going to have them realize later on in the movie that it already exists. And Skin loved it. He is so proud of the fact that he's
Can
in
you
that
just
movie.
call him Skin?
Everybody calls him Skin.
You
His
guys
real
are
name
tight.
is Jim McBride. He is actually one of the sweetest. Nice. The funny thing is, of all the people I've ever worked with in Hollywood, LA, New York, or anything, Mr. Skin, Jim McBride, Mr. Pervert and disgusting, whatever, has by far been the sweetest, nicest person I've ever worked with. He's gotten me other work over the years. He's connected me to other people because he does a lot of different things, frankly. He does a lot of stuff in radio and all these things. So
does the book talk about it all? People like, do celebrities ever complain? Like, you really took it. This was an art piece, and now it's just we're two lesbians.
According to him and all the people I talked to, and I talked to 40 of his employees there over his period of years. And most of his employees, by the way, are old friends of his, are family members. His sister runs HR. His mom does stuff for him, this old lady. His wife is very involved. So it's kind of this little family of people that run this office out of Chicago. According to him, it's never been an issue. And in fact, a lot of people, Sarah Silverman, Anna Paquin, a number of other actresses.
They submit the nude section. They go, I'm at 1 hour 15.
they actually have said, and we use some of these quotes in the books and whatnot, you can see it on Twitter and such. I mean, they love that Mr. Skin is celebrating the nudity and celebrating them, because one thing that made Mr. Skin very successful, and this goes to who he is as a person, we talk about this in the book too, he never goes negative, ever. It is always positive. It's always celebratory. We even talk about, there's that infamous scene with Kathy Bates in About Schmidt, where she gets into the tub and she's, an older woman. She's a bigger woman. We all love Kathy Bates. She's an amazing person, amazing actress, but she's not what a lot of people maybe would call conventionally beautiful in a lot of ways. And rather than kind of making jokes about her, whatnot, he talks about that. And you can see it on his website. We talk about the book as like, wow, look how amazing Kathy Bates is and how brave she is. And she's getting in the tub with Jack Nicholson. And that's so cool that they did that. That really was a big trope of Mr. Skin, and one of the reasons why he's successful. And I think one of the reasons why so many actresses and actors, by the way, because there's also Mr. Skin for men as well, of men as well. And so everyone loves that he's celebratory of it. And in fact, they have their own version of the Academy Awards, the Anatomy Awards. And there are a lot of actresses who, just like now with the Razzies, who will pick up their awards or who will say, hey, I just got an Anatomy Award for Mr. Skin. Because let's face it.
Who? Like who?
Again, Anna Paquin did that. And Sarah Silverman was very proud of hers. She actually talked about it when she got it for something with her asshole. I forget in what movie she was in where she showed that. She did this weird movie that a lot of people don't remember called I Smile Back, I think is what it's called, where she got
was her asshole in it?
She actually did an entire essay about her asshole for Vice magazine back in the day when Vice was something completely different. So
was her asshole in it?
What I believe that you do see it. I haven't seen the movie in a very long time, but
what's your password?
That's what she was talking about.
What's your skin password?
You know what? I do not have a skin password. This is true. I've actually never used it myself. It really was just a job. And a lot of the projects I work on are like that.
Celebrate your job. We're not.
You know what? This is going to be the first time I've
at anything. We're celebrating it.
This is the first time. This is the first time I've ever admitted this publicly. I think I watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes of Restaurant Impossible. Even. I mean, a lot of projects I work on. It really is. Just because you're making the food.
That's even different than reading a book about a website you never went to. That's fantastic to me. All right, let's get to the new project, shall we?
Sure. Thank you.
We're talking about it.
I would like to ask you, what's your dating life like?
I'm married. I've been married for almost 5 years now. I met my wife in Lawrence, Kansas. We moved to Baltimore when I was writing for the Jewish Times.
What would your wife say is the most difficult thing about being married to you?
That I don't stop talking, and that
how does she get you to stop talking?
Oh, she doesn't talk very much. So she's a big listener. She loves to sit and listen. She was the little sister to 2 older brothers and a baseball coach dad. So she's used to that. But when she does talk,
wow, we keep doing people favors.
When she does talk, she kicks my ass. And she definitely knows what to say. But no, she's a great partner in crime. We have a lot of fun together. She actually transcribed the interviews for the Mr. Skin book for me. I paid her. She's transcribed other interviews for me. She helps me. She works with me on a lot of my projects. I've always said, if and when I ever get to the point where with all these dating projects, I actually get paid enough where I can do my own company, I tell her that you're going to quit whatever job you're going to do and you're going to come be my operations manager, because she can do anything. She actually is one of those people who loves number crunching. At some point, she'll probably go back to school and get her CPA.
Is she the one that told you to start the project that we're about to talk about? Because she's like, you know what? I shouldn't be the one to hear all this. You should go record it. And
she definitely approved. The Comic-Con Begins, which is
let's talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. So it's Comic-Con Begins. It's the oral history of San Diego Comic-Con. And which a lot of people don't realize.
Right? That's the one. That's the
big one. Yeah, it's not the oldest, but it is typically the biggest. It's actually been clocked in Guinness Book of World Records at least twice in the last few years.
Have you been?
What's that?
Have you been there?
I actually, funnily enough, the one time I went to San Diego Comic-Con was with Mark Summers when we were doing some behind the scenes stuff for the documentary we made about him. And it was the 30th anniversary of Double Dare. And it was and Nickelodeon. And so we were actually like very behind the scenes, and I got to really see how the sausage was made, not only at Comic-Con, but kind of when there's a big event like that with Nickelodeon and all that. And I could have done an entire book about that, which I will never do because I've got too many friends over there and I don't want to piss them off. But it was definitely a crazy experience. The way I describe Comic-Con to people is that it's like that scene in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas when Hunter's going through, Johnny Depp as Hunter's going through, and nothing. I want nothing. I mean, it is one big like pop-ups, ads of things going on. It's loud. It's crazy. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm not saying what they do isn't amazing, because it is. There's a lot that goes into it. It's very impressive.
We're going to do a lightning round of Keith asking you Comic-Con related questions, and you will have 1 minute to answer each of these questions. How do we feel about that?
Let's do it. Ready?
Okay, I'm going to be the timer. Okay, ready? And the timer starts when Keith finishes his question. Here we go.
When people are in their outfits, sexy and otherwise, are they all banging in their hotel rooms that night?
Definitely.
Yeah, everybody's fucking?
Unquestionably, it's band camp for adults.
I knew it.
Absolutely. We actually have an entire section about that. And in fact, there are people, it's like Revenge of the Nerds or Real Genius or a lot of those movies that came out in the 80s. It's like, hey, just because we're nerds and geeks doesn't mean that we don't get down to. In fact, in some ways, even more so, because it's the one time a year where we all get together. And of course, it's like, we're all life partners and such, and pen pals see each other from across the world and everything. And finally, it's people. It's a community. It's tribes coming together. That's really what Comic-Con is, and that's the thing. Whether you like the actual Comic-Con or not, and that's what we really get at in our show. It's about the community of fans coming together, of feeling safe, of feeling like they know each other. They have their own lingo and that kind of thing. You could find your different groups. Who's into Twilight? Who's into Iron Man? Who's into DC? Who's into Marvel? Who's into Terminator 2? And you find those people. And yes, there are some people who, when they find those people, they say,
5 seconds.
Let's go have some drinks afterwards, and then, what happens.
Perfect minute. Okay. Oh! I have a follow-up also for 1 minute. Okay, what's the kinkiest thing you've heard of happening with a hookup at Comic-Con?
The kinkiest thing I've heard of, not necessarily with a hookup per se, but in the early days of Comic-Con, they did something called the Masquerade, which became the modern version of cosplay. And they used to actually, because it was the 70s and everybody was a hippie, they had to start having rules about not being naked at the Masquerade. And one gal was close to being naked to a point where it was kind of like 7 Year Itch with Marilyn Monroe. They had, or Bus Stop rather, they had to cover up a little bit. They didn't have anything to cover up with. So they used Band-Aids. And as a few of the people talked about, she basically looked like she was mauled by a bear, but she still went out there, and apparently she won that year. So good for her.
I would, when I'd be at Comic-Con when I'm having sex, I'd be like, 5 damage, 5 damage, 5 damage, 5 damage. And they'll think I belong. I mean, that's cool. Do you think
Keith,
somebody could?
You belong. What was your question?
Could somebody dress up like a Smurf and get laid, or do you think they'd be like called out? Would it be like, yeah, but what was Gargamel's original name? You know, would they test you? Or
you know what? Actually, we spoke to the one and only Scott Aukerman, who's been going to Comic-Con since he was 15 years old in '85. And he does bring up the fact that he finds it sometimes a little distressing that you'll see some, sexy young woman who's dressed as Catwoman, and it seems almost like she's there just to like get some content for her YouTube page or TikTok or whatever it is. And he has to wonder, are you really here because you care about Catwoman and you care about the mythology behind it and everything? Or are you just trying to get clicks for your videos at this thing where, if you dress up as a sexy Catwoman, that you will get that to happen? So there's a lot of discussion. And Scott was one of the people who brought it up a lot of, are you really here as a
for the right reasons?
Yeah. Or are you here because he has this other really funny story about a manager of his who he said he saw and didn't realize was going to be there. And he could actually see the guy like almost being confused. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? And that's one of the things, obviously, that a lot of people talk about now with Comic-Con of how much it's changed. Because when they first hit it, in '70, it was 500 people. Most of them were kids. And, it was just a bunch of geeks getting together. So
shit, time's up. Sorry. What are your thoughts on artists, celebrities charging money for autographs? You see these people sitting at a table. They won't look at you, acknowledge you until in the corner of their eye, they see you put a $20 bill in their box. Hopefully they have at least a friend that does it for them. Sometimes it's just them and it's humiliating. What do you think?
So the host
I just want to comment that was totally not a leading question and completely unbiased.
It's a great question.
In tone and otherwise. And go.
Again, we actually have a section about this in one of the later episodes about the commercialization of Comic-Con and such. Indeed, the hostess of our show, Brink Stevens, who is one of the original Scream Queens. She's in movies like Slumber Party Massacre. She also really helped to really pioneer cosplay in the early days. She helped to run that thing I talked about, the Masquerade, for example, when she was as young as 19. She claims that she is the first celebrity that went to a convention who actually started charging for her autographs in the 70s, which is very possible because she was extremely popular across the board. She was also one of the models that Dave Stevens used for the girlfriends in Rocketeer before he passed on, because she was married at one time to Dave.
It's the original Superhead.
What? In a lot of ways.
It's a weird thing to brag about, right? I was the first one that wouldn't shake your hand.
Well, but you have to remember, and Aukerman and a few other people bring this up too, especially when you go now, Comic-Con is extremely expensive even when you are a celebrity, because you might still have to pay for hotels and food and travel. So you got to get some money out of it somehow. So, you also have to
afford a hot dog. To be able to afford that, you got to keep your dog.
So I feel bad for them, honestly.
Lori Petty was spitting on him because she wouldn't say hi without giving money. But you got to keep your
Lori Petty. Wow, now we're in the 90s.
Yeah, got to keep the value up. When does the podcast air? Comic-Con begins.
Comic-Con begins, launches throughout SiriusXM's network, including Stitcher now, June 22nd. It's a 6-part series, so you can get it every week. We'll have a new episode, and we really kind of break it down from the earliest days to now. And we have some really, in addition to the almost 50 people we got from the early days of Comic-Con who really made it all happen, we, of course, got a few ringers in there. You got to get Kevin Smith. We got Neil Gaiman, Frank Miller, Felicia Day. We actually got DMC from Run DMC because he was on Method Man's podcast, which is also on Sirius, talking about comic books and whatnot. We have a number of different people who are the Russo brothers. Scott Aukerman, like I mentioned, has been going to Comic-Con since 1985. But it's really cool talking to the people who really made it happen back in the day, because some of them are in their 70s and 80s now. They literally can't go to Comic-Con anymore because they're in wheelchairs and they get bumped into, or it's too loud or crazy for them. But they're all old hippies and proto-punks and whatnot, so they still have a real badass attitude.
5 seconds.
And so it's a lot of fun. But June 22nd, Comic-Con begins. we're really excited about it, and we're very proud of it. We spent over a year on it. So, hopefully people dig it.
All right. Well, congrats.
What an elevator pitch. Literally, you can do that with absolutely everything.
It's part of my job.
I think it would be great to have a 1-minute podcast where people throw questions at you and you have to answer it in 1 minute. In fact, I'm going to talk to your wife, and from now on, that's how you guys are conversing.
Yes.
Well, there you have it. Matthew, very nice meeting you. Thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for sharing the show, and we'll talk to you soon.